Krista, let's turn to you. So when you were listening to Dr. McKinney's presentation in particular about the way that data might be able to impact and be based on neurodivergence within the workplace, right? What did it spark for you, and how does it apply to the work that you do and the way that you tell stories?
Well, first, great presentation, Ty. I'm a huge fan of what Ty does and all of the data that he collects. And I really like that when you put this together for a workplace or whether it's students or an event, you're collecting data that everybody can understand. With wellness and mental health, people have a hard time understanding it because they can't see it. What Ty is doing is he's laying it out for you. You have this many extroverts, you have this many neurodiversity, all this stuff is laid out so people can see what's in their organization. And then they can use that data to leverage everything, right? So, maybe you're really good at this in our workplace, but hey, if I move you here, you'll be even better. And then you're more purposeful. This will help mental health overall. And it'll also help us understand the importance of mental health. Data is really important because we can understand it. So the more data we can look at in the workplace, in schools, in our daily lives, it'll help everybody understand what steps we need to take to be better. So thank you. Keep doing everything. And how this plays into the work I do is we tell stories all of the time because we want people to understand what's going on in the community. So how can we make the community better? How can we bring people together more, right? Data will help us do that because then I can understand, I'm an extrovert most days, but some days I am an introvert. And people don't understand that you can be both, but you can. So if I tell you that this is my personality, I've done personality tests, then you're going to understand how to talk to me and how I work and what's going on. When I hire someone, if I want someone to be an administrator, I need to hire a certain type of person, and someone that can deal with me being crazy and running all over. And maybe today I'm going to do 5 things, but really I want to do 10. So, yeah, sorry, I only told you about 5, but you have to fit this, this, and this. And somebody with a very structured, organized brain is going to be able to help me be better at my job. And that's what I want in my organization. And as we bring people together through storytelling, you get to see what different organizations are doing, what different industries are doing. And this kind of data helps everybody. It doesn't just help one specific silo. So we have to keep telling the stories, keep bringing the data in and show how it brings us together in different ways. And then when we bring people together at the mental health event, this is a perfect example of, we can see it. It's right there. Now we can talk about it. Where if I go, hey, I'm depressed or I don't feel good, you can't see that necessarily. So you don't understand it. And the more we understand people, the better we are.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for those are such real world examples of how this can play out. I love the concept. First of all, I love breaking dichotomies. So I love that you're a writer and a wordsmith, right? And a storyteller who typically is seen as not loving numbers, right? And you're like, no, I love the data, and I use the data to tell the
Why do you leave
story.
the
And I think
data
that's
to
really interesting.
people like Ty? It's yeah. I'll just leave the data to you, and then I take it and share with everybody.
Right. And
Can I just
that's
plus one
awesome.
that's huge for us. Like the data is very important because some people need that to access it.
Right. Absolutely. I think that even thinking about the report that came out from the US government recently about workplace wellness, right? Some of those reports and some of the data is what can bring validity and push people over the edge to decide to have the conversation that they might have been postponing, or to have the policies in place that they might have been postponing, that kind of thing. And one of the other things, Krista, that when you were talking made me light up is I love this idea, again, when I want to break dichotomies, of thinking about things as both challenges and superpowers, right? And so kind of with that, I want to bring in Farah. I'm thrilled to have you here because I'm really excited for you to share the work that you're doing, not just in the coaching side of the work you're doing, but really in the building awareness and community around neurodiversity. So can you share with everyone else, why are you so passionate about this work, and what is your particular niche?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So for me, I've always been used to walking into a room and being the only person who's a person of color and a visible religious minority, or one of the very few. And so when I started my career as a health executive, I would walk into rooms and people would be like, "Oh, are you the intern?" I'm like, "No, actually, I'm chairing the meeting today." So I'm very used to that DEI and belonging sense, and sometimes feeling like, how am I being viewed? Like I should be concentrating on doing great work, and instead I'm also having to like think about what's happening externally. And I was seeing that with other people as well. Like many others were struggling with this. They were trying to do great work and they didn't feel comfortable bringing forward if they were struggling, like with any kind of mental health or burnout, because they're already diverse externally. They didn't want to admit to any internal diversity because they felt like that would affect their ability to be promoted or to be viewed seriously. And so it's funny how this whole journey happened, but when executive coaching first came into my organization, it was only for the most senior people, and they were all not diverse. Let's just put it that way. Nobody was diverse. And I don't know what got into me that day. I mean, I'm in management. I have a team that reports to me. I have led many dynamic teams. And for some reason that day, I was like, I want to have an executive coach. And they're like, "No, Farah, sorry, it's only for this level and it's very expensive. You can't have it." And I said, "No, I want it. I'm in management. I'm managing a team. I want to have executive coaching. I want to give this a try." And I don't know what happened, but they're like, "Well, we have a student coach. Would that work?" I'm like, "Sure, let's do it." And so that's how I got my love of coaching, because I saw how it could really help people have those conversations in a safe space about what they're going through at work, not only just professionally, but also personally. Because when we come to work, we bring our whole selves, or at least we're supposed to, right? We can't just be like, okay, part of me will be parked over here. And then when I come to work, I'm going to mask myself and do this. You could do it for a while. It doesn't always work. And then I was the only executive coach of color in my organization for the longest time. And I saw the impact of that, of having that safe space. And then I discovered ADHD coaching. Like, oh, this is interesting. And when I tried to find resources, there was nothing for people of diverse backgrounds. And I'm like, what do I do with this now? And so in a moment of hyper focus, and I remember this very clearly, from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., I came up with the term Muslim ADHDers. I have no idea where it came from. But I was at my computer and I'm like, Muslim ADHDers, that's kind of catchy. Does anyone have this name? Nobody had it. Bought the domain name from Namecheap. I went onto Instagram and made sure nobody had it. Went on Canva, created a very crude logo, and had my first post. I'm like, let's just see if this resonates with anyone. Started having people say, "Oh, this is interesting. What do you mean by this?" Because when we talk about ADHD, we're not always clear about how it also affects so many underserved populations. It's already hard enough from the general perspective, and now suddenly you're bringing in all these diverse components to it. And in many communities, they don't want to talk about it. What? Someone has something that's different? You don't talk about it. Who's going to marry them? Nobody will want to be in that family. No one's going to hire them. We don't talk about these things. And so I wanted to work towards demystifying and destigmatizing so that it leads to empowerment and enjoyment. And what do I mean by that? Empowerment meaning we have proper information with great data, and that we are able to find that joy in our life, no matter how your brain is wired. So I wanted to start a conversation, and I put together recently a virtual summit called Muslim ADHDers, Community Through Neurodiversity. I had 14 speakers from around the world. It was shocking to many because many people think that ADHD is a Western thing. It does not affect anyone else outside of North America or an English-speaking world. But I had, do I need to change? Oh. It was dying, oh my gosh. Okay, so 14 speakers from around the world. And I didn't know if anyone was going to sign up for this. Over 1,000. See, I'm breaking another one. What's going on? Over 1,500 people from around the world signed up for this summit, which goes to show that ADHD is not a Western thing. This is from around the world. And I wanted to look at the intersectionality of ADHD, productivity, health and wellness, and faith. Or if you don't ascribe to any faith, your core values. Just think of it that way. So it was part of that conversation, and it just finished like on Saturday. So now I'm trying to figure out where to go from here. We'll see what happens, sending out the survey. But I really just wanted to bring it to the forefront that this is something we have to talk about in the workplace. We're seeing the impact of not understanding physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual well-being because we bring our whole selves to work. How can we help with that conversation in a safe way? I'll just stop there.
No, I mean, I would listen to you, all of you as a panel, talk for the rest of the day. Like we could just do a whole nother panel or a whole nother summit of just the 6 of you. It would be fantastic. So thank you so much, Farah, for sharing that, because I find it really fascinating. And I love the building of community and what that looks like for kind of under-resourced communities and subgroups and that kind of thing. So thank you for your work, and we will be following that, continue to do it. So for our panelists, we do have to wrap up. We are running out of time. I want to do a couple questions from the audience. The first one I'm going to ask, and really anyone can answer who feels qualified. Could we talk about adding an A for accessibility, DEIBA, because we can include those with neurodiversity, but some need accessibility to reach their full potential. Former teacher here throwing out that those diagnosed neurodiversity frequently require accommodations.
So ironically, that's actually kind of where my journey through this kind of started. So when I was in Utah doing my PhD, I was being trained as a clinical neuropsychologist, and I was doing a differential diagnosis between ADHD, depression, learning disability, and giving recommendations for students for how they could get accommodations in order to achieve their academic potential. And that's where I really saw the power for, if you just give people the support and resources that they need, they can thrive. And it's something that's legally enshrined in the Constitution, and I believe in both Canada and USA. If you have a disability, the employer, the educational institution has to provide you with certain accommodations to help you out with that. So I actually would be in favor of that, if nothing else, that it makes it more institutional that we should be having this conversation and destigmatizes it a bit. So then it goes from a fringe issue to now it's a legal issue. It's something that we can be more tangible and put a little bit more weight behind. It's not just aspirational, it's something that we really should be doing.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in on that real quick? The DEIBA?
Yes, I will just say that again, we have to have these conversations and really knowing yourself and what your limitations are is so important, and to know so that you know what to ask for in your accommodations, because just the asking is it has to be very specific, and you have to word it in a certain way, at least here in the US. So you really do need to reach out for guidance on how to do the ask. And that's where like my ERG would step in and support you in how to perform the ask, because you have to know how it's going to impact the work, how it's going to help you, and all the corporate things they need to know. So I would just add that in.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great question. For those of you on the panel in Calgary, are you seeing any questions in the audience that you might be able to call on for me, for you? Are there any, Ty, or should I move on?
No one's raising their hand.
Okay.
Come for lunch.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, that's all right. So to close out this panel, here's what I want to do. I personally think all of you are fascinating human beings. I want to have dinner and drinks with each and every one of you. So I'll be using some miles soon, but hopefully you were each inspired by each other's areas of expertise and genius. And so the way I want to close is to either have you share a last insight or thought or priority piece of information that you think CEOs and C-suite level people need to know, or tell me about a partnership from this panel of 6 that you are excited to pursue after meeting each other today. And in any order, but we'll start with Ty.
I think the one thing that I really took away from this panel is the value of whatever that incremental next step is. This is a very complex issue that we're trying to tackle, and there's not going to be a silver bullet that's going to do it. But you mentioned using the Myers-Briggs. That's a really good conversation starter to just get the ball rolling. As you said, taking the step, like, why don't I get a coach? And, just initiating that conversation got you a coach and started this whole beautiful movement. Storytelling, really getting the conversation going. So I think it's worth asking us individually as well as within organizations, what's one step that you can take to advance the conversation, push the initiative forward, and that'll start having a turnover effect where more and more will start to happen. And that's where the magic and the beauty happens. And as a scientist, I just want to collect data to support that.
For me, I would say that, and Sumana knows what I'm probably about to say, one of the things that we've talked about online is strategic woo-woo. That's something that we that we coined in one of our LinkedIn audio. Felipe, I don't know, I hope you're there, but yes, we had that conversation. Really from a corporate perspective. Just think about it. If you're a leader, you have pressures. You need to get work done. We all know that. We need to get the work done. But if you want to be a true leader, you have to understand the needs of those who are working for you so that they can provide their best, so that, guess what? You will be able to not only meet those deadlines or those end goals, you will exceed them. So true leaders need to understand how to best leverage their workforce. And that means you got to actually get to know them. You got to provide those resources, and those resources don't necessarily need to be expensive. You got to just know how to better understand your people, but also better understand how to use the resources you have. Too often I've seen, and I've worked in big corporations and I've worked in small ones, and they'll be like, oh, well, we have this app or we have this, but they don't know how to use it. So guess what? It's just sitting there collecting dust. So I think how we can help our leaders is providing them with great data, showing them that what resources they can use and how to use them and why it's important to use them, and show them that, through a pilot program or whatever the case may be, that when you do this, you're going to not only meet, you're going to exceed your bottom lines, you're going to have a healthy, happy, fantastic organization. So we need to help our leaders better understand why this is important, and we will together.
So just to start off with my researcher cap for just a moment, I am going to pull in Dr. McKinney with me, and at lunchtime, because one of the things about research is reproducibility, we're going to take those 2 individuals who said that they could only eat 1 chip and have Lay's out in front of them and see how they do. So I'm just going to probably talk about just a takeaway. And so I think it's important to let people tell you who they are. And this is a lesson that I've learned both in medicine and in life. In medicine, I have the privilege of working with individuals living with chronic conditions, and they continue to humble me at all times. And I sometimes go home being like, oh my God, I need to do better and be better, because they just humble me. And I think even in life, people just amaze you and surprise you. To share a quick anecdote, I was doing a 10 to 15 block walk home one day, and this woman just came alongside me, and she happened to have the same cadence as me. And so she thought I had a friendly face. So she started talking to me, essentially told me her whole life story, and talked about how she'd been married 3 times, had an impending 4th marriage coming up, and then paused just long enough to say, hey, are you married? And I said, no. And she said, okay, I'm going to give you all the pro tips that I've learned in life. Just so from now on, you can take a man within 3 dates and have them begging to marry you. So I did not think I would get marriage lessons that day, so that's pretty cool. So I think I'll just say, bottom line, I think let people tell you who they are, let them be who they are, so that I think we can allow or free each other to be our most authentic selves and build not just a workplace, but a world of wellness.
That's really good. I really enjoyed this event. You guys have so many stories to tell. I just want to take them all home and put them in a magazine. This is a really important discussion for workplaces to have and to continue to have. And I want to keep watching because this is so good. Like, to bring culture in and to stand up to bosses and to ask for things is really important. And I mean, my generation was taught to go to work, keep your mouth shut, sit still, show up at 9, leave at 5, don't do anything else. That is not how things should be. That's not how they should have been. And now we're finally all coming together to say we have to change things, and to be able to use the data to do that is really important. Because if you went to somebody, especially like my dad's generation, and you said, you know, we need to work on workplace wellness, and it starts with you. So you have to go and work on yourself so we can show everybody else. That generation would be like, no, I showed up to work. I work really late hours, and no, get someone else to do it. But if you take data to them and you lay it out to a leader and say, look at this data and look what I could do for you, they're going to get excited because they can see it. And that makes me excited because, wow, what a great story. We can take some data, we can show people how it's going to make their life better, and they're going to turn around and make all of their employees happy. They're going to keep people employed. They're going to keep everybody together, and they're going to grow a really great team, but it's going to benefit their business. If you have people using their superpowers, it's amazing. So thank you, everybody. I just loved all of your information and knowledge. I will be reaching out to everybody.
Awesome. I love it. And if we can get a quick wrap up from Taya and then Trent, I know we need to pass the mic back over to Simona to finish out the summit.
Thank you. I have been taking notes this whole time. So many great points to add to my repertoire, and very excited. I'd love to reach out to Farah. I love the idea of the physical, mental, and spiritual aspects. I come from, I'm a Jewish, so if we could do a collaboration of some sort of thing, that would be awesome. But yeah, I think to me, it's exciting to hear from so many people passionate about something that I myself am passionate about. I don't always, have that interaction in my day-to-day. So hearing from people that are trying to be change makers is very important, and we all need to be change makers. And I would say the simplest thing that you can do is just listen. And if you don't understand someone, don't be so quick to react and assume that they are, assume the meaning of what their reaction was. Always feel open enough to ask a question. And sometimes it's the most basic questions, and it can totally reset your impression and the entire atmosphere, especially in corporate when we're all so stressed. So I would say just, take people for who they are and be willing to ask questions. Thank you.
Okay, saving the worst for last. So I guess the thing that's standing out for me, when we talk about CEOs, and I will say that I would love to, I love working with people. That's just where we are. So everybody, let's work, let's do stuff. But the thing that's standing out for me as we think about people and doing this type of work is I go back to my own experience of living with this, this brain injury that I've got. I'm a ski instructor. I know that's a whole story in its own. But I got hit by someone and had a pretty severe brain injury. And there were things that I had to experience as you recovered from that, right? Bright lights. I can tell you stories about wandering on Target for 2.5 hours trying to find something that I remember on one side and get to the other side and forget. But there was a piece of that was about learning how to do things. And I certainly had information. I certainly knew that I wanted to have desire, but there was a skill piece. There was a learning piece of how do I actually do the things. And as we've been doing our work, one of the things that's really struck us as we do the justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, access, accountability, all the ways that we talk about that is that people have a desire to do better, for all the reasons that we can come up with. Like they want to do it better because it's good for the bottom line. They want to do better because it's good for humanity, because they're good humans, but sometimes they just don't know how. And if we can find ways to help people learn the how, so the data is important, absolutely. The desire to change is important, absolutely. And if we can make that connection to how you do that. So folks in the C-suite, it's helpful to give them the information and the data and to start to teach them how. When we think about executive coaching, that's what that's about. It's the how. We have to tie all of that together, and then let people try until they get that, until that muscle gets a little bit stronger. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Trent. Thank you to everyone. Like I said, when we started, I'm honored to have moderated this panel. I'm even more grateful at the end of this panel to be part of it. I just want to do a quick thanks to our sponsors and advisory board for allowing this really interesting and I think important conversation to happen. And I'm going to pass it back to Sumana and Marion from our advisory board to finish us out. Thanks, everyone.